All right, so a bit later than I wanted to record this at. Had some stuff go on today, and I understand if you don't want to sit here and listen to Atlanta stuff, we can save it for next week. The Phoenix videos will be up shortly. However, let's talk about Atlanta. Let's get into it. I'm trying to be better at getting ahead of stuff, and really focusing on the following weeks. Obviously, I'm still focusing on Phoenix. It's barely Thursday. Excuse me. It's barely Thursday, but I want to talk about Atlanta, and I'm mainly just going to leave this picture on the screen because this is probably the best that we're going to get until actual reporters and stuff really do start throwing stuff out there. This is probably about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks, when one of the NASCAR experience cars were going around. But some of the things I want to bring up with Atlanta is clearly we're going to learn a lot from how this race is going to play out from practice. It's going to be dictated by how big of packs that we do get in practice. I don't necessarily believe that's going to race exactly like the 500 this year. I don't think we're going to have the entire field under like a 4/10 blanket, but I would not be shocked to see the entire field within 6 seconds of each other for a majority of the run. That's how I would look at it, and I think that's going to be pretty accurate because there's really no reason to lift right now at Atlanta. And I'm going to give you some backstory, and then we'll kind of talk about some fantasy stuff. And I mean, really, all this is just with me, like my opinions, my speculation, how I think this race is going to go. So if you don't like that, I completely understand. But when Goodyear first went here for the tire test, which is why I don't like Goodyear. I don't like how NASCAR treats these people, because they treat Atlanta like they were just like second-class citizens. So Goodyear comes down, and Atlanta's like, okay, hey, we would like to get some footage. We need some promo, please, Lord. We need some B-roll or something. And Goodyear never allows testing or never allows filming of their test, which I understand. Like, sure, if you blow a tire and somebody wrecks, you don't want that footage out. But if it's already controlled, it's not open to the public. The only people that are going to have that are going to be NASCAR officials or track workers, like people there. Like, you can just say them, don't release that footage. Anyway, so Atlanta goes over there and they're like, hey, can we need to get some footage? And Goodyear's like, let's see, we're here for 2 days. We'll allow you to record for the first 10-ish minutes of day one. Okay, after that, can't record anything. But Goodyear, you're here for 2 days. Are you sure we can't just like record a little bit more? What about when they're like pack racing, just so we can get like a little promo, so we're not having to just show old footage of old Atlanta and all the no, we can't do that. Well, look, you need to be grateful we're allowing you to even be here, okay? You need to be grateful you can even like record anything. So anyway, that's the main reason why I didn't really care about and look at the footage from the Goodyear tire test, because most of that was done. There are some from later sessions, but it's still very controlled. It's not showing you anything, and it's more static shots than anything else. But yeah, like I didn't like that at all. That's just a stupid stand. I don't know why Goodyear has to just be like a fucking asshole and just swing their dick around because we're Goodyear, we control everything. So that's the main point of why I didn't really take a lot from the Goodyear tire test earlier in the year. I did, however, like the feedback from the drivers, and specifically Kurt Busch, because Kurt's the guy who, between Buescher and Chastain, Kurt's the guy I want to get info from. I do believe that we're going to see some huge runs entering the corners, because it was noted in the Goodyear tire test, when they did get lined up, they were about a second faster than they were by themselves. And they're going to be running the Super Speedway package for Atlanta. And that's going to be huge. That's going to punch massive holes in the air. And in a sense of where it's not like you're not continuously just increasing speed because you got to go through the tri-oval, which is going to be sketchy. We'll talk about that in a second. But we're going to need your cars to not be tight entering one, because I think that's where a majority of the passes are going to be. Or not entering one, entering the corners, because you're going to have the runs down the back straightaway, and you're going to have the momentum from however you leave the dog leg into turn one. And it depends if people want to block, they want to get stupid, whatever the case is, that's how it's going to race. When we look at Auto Club and Las Vegas, we've seen that on these restarts, we're maintaining side by side for 3, 4, 5 laps after the restarts. When you look at specifically last week at Las Vegas, a flat track compared to Atlanta, a track where you got to be off the throttle. These guys are still side by side. No lane technically had the run. Obviously, the outside is where you wanted to be, but starting the inside didn't kill you. These guys stay side by side, and you were able to get shoves and runs, and sometimes even when they were trying to pass Ross Chastain mid-race, he's on the inside entering 3. We got 2 Hendrick guys pushed on the outside, and they still can't get past Chastain. That's on an intermediate track where you got to lift. This is going to be a track where you do not have to let off at all. There's no reason to let off. They saw no signs of doing that on the Goodyear tire test. NASCAR confirmed that they're bringing the Super Speedway package. NASCAR also confirmed that, hey, we might get a bit crazy because they did order more fencing. That's always good to hear. We got extra fencing ready for something big to happen. Secondly, they did also not straighten, but ease the exit of 4 into the trial. Well, I don't know if you can really see this here, but they extended the safer barrier. So if you think of like Charlotte, the safer barrier pretty much just follows the dog legs. In concrete here, they kind of extended the safer barrier, so it's not as vicious of a hit whenever you hit the wall here. I'm curious to see how that will go, because it's the first time we've kind of seen the longer foam barriers implemented behind the steel. And I'm very curious if this is the same type of construction that they used at Daytona this year, because it just seemed to me that wall, while it's still absorbing a lot of impact, I felt like it transferred a lot to the car, and I feel like that's also why we saw a lot of the gen. That's still how the next gen is. It just absorbs energy, it blows tires, it's going to slide all over the place. But there's a chance that this really does work more like a self-cleaning racetrack, where everybody just flies to the inside after they hit the wall, very similar to how Dover races, or how Dover is when they get in a wreck. Everybody just kind of slides down the inside. I think that's going to be huge. Anyway, so entering this race, I think, actually, let me bring up some footage of how I believe it's going to race, and then we'll kind of talk while that goes over. And so here I brought up a run from the 05 500, which I know, like, look, man, I know it's not racing like Daytona. We got this muted, right, NASCAR? Please don't claim me. But I would not be shocked if it races very similar to this. Now, this is coming out of it's about 4 or 5 laps after a restart. Obviously, they started single file, had the lap down cars in the inside lane, but I would not be shocked if this is how Atlanta races, to where we see like this type of pack racing, because handling is going to be huge. You're going to want to, like, I would argue that compared to Talladega and Daytona, and the width of the racetrack at Daytona playing a huge factor, I think that's going to be huge at Auto Club, because you're not going to have you're not going to have a lot of lanes at Atlanta. Sure, it's wide enough for 3x3, but you're going to be side by side for a majority of the race. I think we are going to see probably a breakaway of about 4, 5, 6 cars, and then we'll get side by side like this. We're going to have this, at least in my brain, I believe this is how we're going to end up racing, to where the leaders are kind of able to run the queue line, bottom in the corners, or at least enter turn 1 and turn 3 up high, shoot it down, be at the bottom of the track when you get in the apex of the corner, and then exit right by the wall in turn 2 and in turn 4. That's how I would imagine. That's why, personally, I would lean more towards this type of pack racing. This is just where I'm at right now. Now, as I'm recording this video, I went to go check, because I was curious. I hadn't heard, yet again, leave it to NASCAR to never report anything and do things just last minute. We've had this racetrack constructed for months now. We've had Goodyear tire test, but the question was always, well, are we going to have a double yellow line? I don't know. Well, thankfully, I waited all day to start making my stupid videos here, and yes, so we're going to likely have a double yellow line. Now, you might be like, Brandon, why is that so big? Why is that such a big deal? Look at all the racing lane they have right here. No, driver. This is the apron. This is the painted logos, and unless they change it. But this right here is where the track is, where the defining track nature is. This white line right here. And so this is the part of the track that's still almost smaller than old Atlanta. Like, when you really think about it, it's pretty much smaller than old Atlanta. That's why we're going to see, coming out of turn 4 onto the tri-oval, we have 3 lanes here. And if they have a yellow line here, you might as well just build a concrete wall and call it a day. The exit of 4 is going to be huge. If you get tight here, slide up into someone. This is the main reason where this is the main area of concern for me in terms of building lineups, in terms of thinking of how people are going to end up wrecking and how stupid this race is going to get. It's this front straightaway right here, because there's no reason to lift. You're full throttle around this track. It just depends on where their momentum is, and it depends because you exit 4. You're cranking your wheel pretty much all the way, not all the way, but you're cranking your wheel quite a bit in turn 4 or in the corner, leaving turn 4. Then you get it straight, and then you got to cut to a very quick and sharp left turn here to make this. It's not really like Texas. You can treat it as one big turn. You can kind of treat Charlotte. You still got to straighten the wheel out at Charlotte, but here at Atlanta, it's no longer this is just one easy turn where you can kind of ease the wheel in, maybe straighten it out a little bit, and then go back left as you enter turn 1. No, this is legit. Like, you're going to have to turn left, maybe get it squared away, but if you're side by side through here, you got 2 distinct corners here. This is the main area of concern, and if this is a yellow line, that's going to make it a mess. Secondly, in your face, I don't know, do I tag him? I might do it next week. But I remember NASCAR doesn't want AstroTurf. These tracks don't want AstroTurf. It's been proven time and time again, nobody gives a fuck about AstroTurf. You stupid drivers, stop going to the booth and bitching about AstroTurf, because they're not going to do it. They're just not going to do it. It was a terrible financial and constructional decision at Charlotte. Charlotte, behind closed doors, has repeatedly said adding AstroTurf to the front straightaway was one of our worst decisions because it's such a pain in the ass with drainage and other crap. They completely regret it. Brandon, how do you know that? Because Atlanta was rebuilt, reconfigured, and guess what? We still got grass in the front straightaway. That's just how it is. So, when we go back to how I truly believe this race is going to play out, I would look to play out in the long runs of like the 06, 05, 04, 500. That's personally what I would look at. Back when handling was a concern where you could still get runs, and when you watch runs mature, well, here, we'll even bring this back up here. When you watch runs mature, I think we see, is it Reagan? I think Reagan is in the 06 here. Let's kind of Junior might, I think Junior maybe gets pushed by Sterling here. Let's kind of, I know for a fact the outside run does get a push on the leaders here at some point. I may have already passed it here, but I do want to, as we saw, I bet you Wimmer got tight. Yeah, so the zero car just got tight in the center of the corner. Very similar to what I think we're going to deal with Atlanta here. And so I may have already passed it. Hold on, give me a second. Let me find this because I do want to talk about this. I can't find it. I was looking through, and I don't want to take too long to show some arbitrary run, but that formed basically, it took, at least lap and a half leaving turn 2 at the old Daytona. I think the same thing's going to happen here. If you want to make a run entering 1, you're going to have to start the run in 2 on the previous lap, build it up, and help the momentum carry you through the tri-oval to try and get the push, or at least the momentum carried into entering turn 1, and not necessarily outbraking because you're not outbraking, but carrying. If you enter turn 1 on the low side, your best bet to pass them is either to enter low and kind of slide high and try and get beside them, or just have somebody push you by them. That's why I believe we're not going to see 3x3x3 racing, but we're going to see an instance to where if somebody wrecks in the center of 1 and 2 or 3 and 4, they're going to go up, hit the wall, and come back down onto the track, which is just going to be a self-cleaning racetrack. It's going to block the track for probably 2, 3, 4 seconds, then absolutely clear itself. I'm very curious at all this. I've looked at all the stuff that's leading up to it. I know it's a week early, but I at least want to get this stuff out of the way. And that yellow line is going to be an absolute mess. It's going to create so many things. Because not only do you have to deal with the yellow line on the front straightaway, all this is going to be painted. Which I've never understood their argument for, well, we need to get rid of the grass, because the grass you just slide on, you get sideways, you slide on stuff. We need to get rid of the grass. But then you paint the racetrack. Like at Phoenix, they paint the asphalt. Have you ever stepped on painted concrete or painted asphalt? Do you see how slick it is when it's dry? God forbid it's wet. Not necessarily they're going to race on a wet racetrack, But when you're going that fast and you hit the brake, you have more grip on the asphalt than you do the painted surfaces. And so I just assume everybody, this is going to be the choke point. This is absolutely going to be the toughest part of the track because you're coming off the 28. I'm guessing that the track is maybe right here, maybe like down to 13 degrees of banking. Because obviously, I mean, we're basically going from 0 to 28 in the corners back down to 0. And so we're not only are you dealing with the transition from the bank dropping you, so you're most likely already going to be probably a bit tight, either pushing towards the wall or you're going to be loose entering the tri-oval. Now you got to deal with staying above this double yellow line here. This is going to absolutely be the choke point. This is going to be the worst part of the track. Do we see gigantic DNF wrecks? Maybe. Do we build this race as a huge place differential play? I don't necessarily think so. Looking back at the 06, and I'll even bring that up here because I do believe it's going to race very similar to that. All right, so we look at the sample size here. I'm looking at 06, 05, and 04 of the 500s, and so we are seeing some place differential in 2006, but we're still seeing guys that are, and specifically, I do want to look at the laps led. I think it's going to be very similar to this. I think in 05, I think Stewart leads like 104 laps or something, but I think we're going to see laps led be spread out between cars that are showing speed, cars that are going to be fast. And sure, we do have place differential. These guys showed up in the 30s, these guys in the 20s, but it's not just completely all stacked from the back. I doubt Kirk would have been optimal starting 32nd to 20th with some of these guys up here most likely outscoring them. When we go and look at 05, this is where we start seeing more and more from the front half of the pack still showing up. Now, granted, we do have Rusty and Elliott, in the 30s finishing in the top 12, but we're still seeing guys, Stewart, he led 107, but Stewart starting fourth, leading 107 laps, finishing 7th. I think we're going to see races that play out very similar here. Also, with 04, it's very much if you have a fast car, you're showing that you're going to be strong, you're going to run up front here. Stewart was so close so many damn times. It could play out like this to where it's two guys who start up front in the top 10 who have handling, lead the entire race. Then you kind of defer to place differential back here. And we're not necessarily seeing these gigantic big wrecks. 10 cars DNF, actually 11 cars DNF here. We have, 13 cars DNF here. Even less so in the 2006 Daytona 500 where a majority of the cars were running. We just got a green-white checkered at the end that did mess up the run order quite a bit. But I think it's going to play out very similar to that. I don't think we're going to see necessarily half the field be taken out at Atlanta. I would probably project for maybe probably 10, 13 cars, 15 cars maybe, and then sprinkling in probably starting and finishing positions very similar to both of these three races. That's just where I'm at right here. I am just incredibly annoyed that they are bringing the yellow line rule because that is going to make turn 4 extremely tight. And outside of what I'm saying here, I'm just going to mainly wait until the practice sessions at Atlanta, which is going to be, next week. Don't want to be dealing with making this video next week. I figured I'd just do it now because I was already looking at Atlanta anyway. And so yeah, if you like this, maybe leave a comment, or what do you think Atlanta's going to race like? And we'll talk about Phoenix in the next videos. Thank you for watching.